Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, also known as the Godfather, or the Boss of Bosses, was the leader and founder of the Guadalajara Cartel. He was a federal judicial police officer, and former bodyguard of the Sinaloan governor, Leopoldo Sanchez Cecil. Miguel Angel later went on to control the majority of drugs that were being trafficked through Mexico, and into the United States, in the 80s. Monopolizing the drug business, until his eventual downfall, due to the murder of DEA agent, Enrique Kiki Camarena, resulting in his arrest, and the splintering and fracturing of the Guadalajara Cartel into separate factions. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo was born on January 8, of 1946, in the outskirts of Culiacan, Sinaloa. Miguel Angel grew up in a small community named Bella Vista. His childhood was surrounded by poverty and limited opportunities. When he graduated high school, at age 17, he joined the Federal Judicial Police Force, which was known to be plagued with corruption, and simultaneously study business. He worked his way up and was assigned to be the personal bodyguard of the then governor of Sinaloa, Leopoldo Sanchez Cecil. They eventually developed a friendship, and Leopoldo even made Miguel Angel the godfather of his son, Rodolfo Sanchez. During this time period, Miguel Angel used his connections to protect his small trafficking business, and was also brokering corruption. Growing marijuana was a common occurrence in these communities, that are along the outskirts of Culiacan. A fact that, Miguel Angel had a few marijuana fields, and was working for Pedro Aviles Perez, the first major Mexican trafficker. In 1977, Mexico launched Operation Condor, sending thousands of soldiers into the Golden Triangle, to destroy marijuana and poppy fields. The goal of the operation was to rid the area of drugs and drug traffickers. The soldiers set homes ablaze, physically assaulted men, and assaulted women sexually. Many traffickers were alerted, and left the area. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, and Rafael Caro Quintero, went to Guadalajara. Miguel Angel reunited many traffickers for a meeting in Guadalajara. Miguel proposed forming a federation by pooling their money and resources to plant large fields, and widen their distribution network. Many agreed and joined, accrediting Miguel Angel as the leader of the federation. This did not go well with Pedro Aviles, which Miguel and many other traffickers worked under. This led to Ernesto Fonseca, allegedly sending the Mexican army to kill Pedro Aviles, in 1978. Miguel Angel took over Pedro's organization, and the Guadalajara Cartel was formed. The cartel planted huge marijuana fields in isolated areas, and paid off high-ranking officials to operate with impunity. This led them to be the largest supplier of marijuana in the United States. In the early 80s, drug interdiction efforts in Florida increased, and the DEA shut down Colombian drug routes through the Bahamas. This led to Colombian drug cartels to look for other avenues to traffic their cocaine into the United States. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo was introduced to the Colombians through Juan Mata Ballesteros. Miguel worked with the Cali Cartel and the Medellin Cartel, smuggling tons and tons of cocaine through Mexico, and into the United States. Rather than taking cash as payment, the Guadalajara Cartel took 50% of the cocaine that was transported through Mexico. This allowed them to sell their cut of cocaine in their own, separate markets in the United States. This proceeded to be extremely profitable for the organization. It is estimated that this earned the Guadalajara Cartel approximately $5 billion annually. The Guadalajara Cartel had nearly monopolized cocaine trafficking in Mexico. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo would go on to buy hotels, pharmacies, houses, ranches, thousands of heads of cattle, and even bought large stakes in banks to launder his money. His organization was being protected by local law enforcement, politicians, the DFS, the Mexican equivalent of the CIA, and was even being protected by the CIA itself. The CIA was using the Mexican drug trade to secretly fund the Contras, a rebel group fighting the Nicaraguan communist Sandinistas. At the same time, the Mexican army and the DEA were fighting against drug trafficking, and were making large busts in the United States and in Mexico. One of the largest busts would occur in 1984, at El Rancho El Buffalo, in the state of Chihuahua. The raid was directed by DEA agent Kiki Camarena, had 450 Mexican soldiers raid a 2,500-acre marijuana plantation, resulting in 15,000 metric tons of marijuana being destroyed, and costing the Guadalajara Cartel billions of dollars. Miguel's partners, Rafael Caro Quintero, and corrupt associates, decided to kidnap and interrogate the DEA agent behind the raid. They wanted to find out how much he knew about Mexican corruption and what he knew about the Guadalajara Cartel. On February 7, 1985, two DFS agents approached DEA agent Kiki Camarena and flashed their DFS badges. They abducted Kiki and took him to a house on 881 Lope de Vega Street, in Guadalajara. When he arrived to the house, there was officers, politicians, and the leaders of the Guadalajara Cartel. They interrogated Kiki Camarena for over 30 hours, torturing him by breaking ribs, his nose, his jaw, and even drilled holes into his head. They also injected him with amphetamines to keep him alive as he slowly died. Kiki Camarena's body was later discovered outside a ranch in La Angostura, Michoacán. The United States government demanded justice and the Mexican government went after the Guadalajara cartel leaders, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, Rafael Caro Quintero, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo. Rafael Caro Quintero would be arrested on April 4, 1985, in San Jose, Costa Rica. Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo would be arrested 3 days later on April 7, 1985, in his villa, located in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Miguel Angel went into hiding and managed to evade arrest, due to his connections keeping him safe for the next 4 years. Until, police officers bribed some of his friends, which Miguel Angel would later state in his testimony, that on the morning of his arrest, he went to take breakfast to his friend Carlos' house, and upon arrival, he was knocked down to the ground with rifle butts. He would be arrested in 1989, in Guadalajara. In a press interview during his arrest, Miguel Angel claimed he was innocent and that the arresting officers forced him to sign documents against his will. And that other documents that he was showed had fake signatures and fingerprints of his. He would also go on to say that they gave him a pill and water, and when he woke up he was in Mexico City. During his trial, he kept stating his innocence and claimed that he had nothing to do with the death of DEA agent Kiki Camarena, or had anything to do with drug trafficking. He also made claims that he had never met Rafael Caro Quintero or Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo. During his trial, he would repeatedly claim he had never committed a crime. And was ultimately sentenced to 40 years in prison, for the murder of Kiki Camarena. His net worth was an estimated $500 million, and owned 50 houses and 200 ranches. While in prison, he ran the Guadalajara Cartel for a while, until he was placed in a maximum security prison. The cartel soon fractured apart and plazas were distributed among the members. The Tijuana Plaza went to the Arellano brothers, the Juarez Plaza went to Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Sinaloa Plaza went to El Guerrero Palma, El Chapo Guzman, and El Azul. The Sonora Plaza went to Miguel Caro Quintero. While in prison, Miguel Angel lost one of his eyes, had multiple stomach surgeries, and went partially deaf. On April 29, 2014, his petition to be moved into a medium security prison was denied. Rafael Caro Quintero was promptly released on a technicality in 2013. And Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo was moved to house arrest in 2016, due to his old age and declining health. After serving 28 years of his 40-year sentence, in 2017, he was retrialed and sentenced to an additional 37 years in prison. On February 20, 2019, at age 73, a Mexico City court denied his request to complete his sentence under house arrest, although his two counterparts were already out of prison. In 2021, he did his first interview, and when he was asked about Kiki Camarena, he would go on to say, and I quote, "I'm not aware why they've linked me to that crime. I never met that man. I'm not into weapons. I'm really sorry about what happened to him, because I know he was a good man." End quote. When he was questioned about Rafael Caro Quintero and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, he would say, and I quote, "I don't know them, we never met out there, I've never talked to those individuals." End quote. During the interview, he stated that he was a farmer and a cattle rancher, who happened to invest his money and buy a couple pharmacies and 2 old motels. On September 12, 2022, it was reported that Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo was finally granted house arrest. He is currently in extremely poor health, he is missing an eye, is hard of hearing, and has lost the ability to walk. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo will live out the remainder of his days under house arrest.